Welcome back to another episode of the Next Level Minds podcast. My name is Chris Chapman, and I am your host. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a podcast that is dedicated to those who want to reach a next level in their business, personal, or career life. The way in which we do that is by speaking with entrepreneurs, content creators, or movers and shakers in their industry, and we really walk through their story of how they have gotten from point A to point B and overcame various setbacks, adversities, and failures along the way, because we all know those three things are part of the journey towards success. Now, before we dive into this week's episode and this week's guest, I want to reiterate my main goal, which is to impact over 1 million people with the Next Level Minds podcast by helping them reach a next level. So if you have not done this already, please subscribe to Next Level Minds on Apple Podcast, YouTube as well. We now have a video component. And share this episode with a family member, friend, or colleague who you think will get some value out of it. Also, I just launched the Next Level Minds newsletter talking about faith, family, fitness, finances, and American freedoms. The link to subscribe to that is in my Instagram. It is also below in the show notes. We're going to start releasing probably every 3 to 4 weeks. And then as we start to get more and more subscribers, we're going to ramp that up to every 2 weeks, every 1 week, etc. Now on to today's guest. I have the opportunity to sit down with Frederick Cary. He is the CEO at Idea Pros, which is a business incubator that creates world-class entrepreneurs. They have over 90,000 members, and they've had over 400 co-founder launches when it comes to helping them fund, build, and ultimately launch their business. He also has been a founder of 10 different companies, 8 of which were extremely successful. He's got experience in technology, software, digital video, broadband, you name it. He's probably got some sort of experience in it. He's what we like to call at Next Level Minds an absolute serial entrepreneur. And his goal is to help build successful businesses that can make a positive difference in their sector. We're going to talk a lot about entrepreneurship, business, failures, all the great things that come with entrepreneurship, and all the messy things that come with it as well. So if entrepreneurship and business is something that's important to you, or something that you just want to learn more about, whether you're early in your entrepreneurial journey or at the late stage in your entrepreneurial journey, 100% keep listening. Other than that, let's go ahead and dive in to hear what Frederick has to say. Fred, thanks so much for hopping on the Next Level Minds podcast.
It is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, I think this will be good. It was fun talking to you pre-recording. I feel like you got some humor inside of you, low key. So I'm excited for that as well.
And we'll see what I can do. You can bring in bad jokes.
Hey, bad jokes are good jokes, especially if you're the jack of all trades. Businesses exactly. And can make jokes. Usually you see one or the other. So
and a musician.
Oh, wow. What do you play?
I actually play everything. I just about 6 months ago, I started getting back into my music because I was going crazy, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, as a lot of your audience probably knows about their own lives. Yep. And I decided to get back to my music roots because I started out as a musician. So in 6 months, I've recorded 40 songs, released the first album, and have over a million downloads already in 4 weeks. So
wow,
somebody likes it.
Wow. How did you, that's a fast track, right? How did you end up getting that many downloads and obviously relearning all those instruments so quickly?
Well, because I'm pretty damn good.
I
just Spotify picked me up after it went, because it was already trending. I have over 500,000 followers on Instagram for this business, personal development stuff and everything. And I put it on there and everybody started eating it up. So,
yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that's a good power of social media. I mean, when you got a decent brand, you can post a couple links and then it obviously kind of skyrockets from there, which is great.
Yeah, but boys and girls, this is not about music. Stay tuned.
Yep. So I think a good place to start would be talking, obviously you started multiple companies in your entrepreneurial day. You obviously run a company now that I saw on your website creates, world-class entrepreneurs. So just curious, based on your background, what got you so entrepreneurial and things of that nature?
I wish it was a really good story, but the reality is I just didn't think anybody would have me, number one.
Mm,
And number two, I didn't feel that I could fit that the cookie cutter mold that would be required of me to work loyally for somebody else. I always felt like an outsider,
mm.
outlier to the equation. And so I just felt early on I really had to do things my own way and struggle through the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. Did you have anybody as kind of your mentor or somebody that taught you? Like, where did you learn it? If you mentioned that it was like, all right, I'm doing this because I don't feel like I'm hireable or can stay with an employer.
I did not. And I strongly encourage
Mm,
everybody listening or watching to get somebody that they can rely on and go to and bounce advice off of, which, by the way, on my Instagram, I'll do that. But on a more global basis, if you can find somebody that's experienced in doing what it is that you want to do, that's the best thing you can find. That's better than strategy.
yeah. And is a good place to find those folks usually social media, or what do you suggest there?
A lot of times it's personal relationships. If
Yep.
you're passionate about something, a lot of times you will locally be involved. If you have a company that you want to build that you think is investable and that you're looking for an exit in the future, even your local accelerator, you can find or incubator, either one of those, you can find people that will be glad to sit there and mentor you. And you can also go online and just look, where can I find a great mentor online?
Mm.
And you'll get 4 or 5 different sites that provide those services for free or very little money.
And what does that conversation look like? Let's say it's somebody in your network. I know you mentioned that was a suggestion. Is it, hey, would love a phone call. I'll trade you this phone call for X. What does that dynamic look like?
I think in the very beginning, you don't even have to trade anything
Mm,
because they say, or I say, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say it, that you spend the first half of your career building your resume and the second half building your legacy. And when you get people that are in that second half of the career path, a lot of them are anxious to give back and to help others and to keep you from avoiding at least some of the mistakes that they made along their journey. So if you just approach somebody with the fact that, look, I'm trying to do this, I view you as being really great in this, and I would love if I could just have a few minutes of your time every once in a while to bounce things off of you and get advice from you. That's probably enough. And then as you start building your company, you can go back and say, I'd love to have you on as a strategic advisor, and I want to give you a
mm.
couple of points of my company. And I can't pay you anything right now, but I would like to give you some equity for helping me. And that's a later conversation after you've developed a little further down the road you want to go on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What you mentioned there. First half building the resume, second half building the legacy. And I have a lot of people in my network that are, I'm 28 years old. I have people that are 20, 30 years older than me that have built wildly successful businesses, careers, all the stuff there. And I talk to them quite a bit, but it's they're in that phrase of like, I'm building the legacy. I've already kind of made it, quote unquote. I want to give back. And, that understanding that concept, it took me a couple years because I was always skeptical to reach out to these folks. And then once I did, I'm like, holy crap, like they're willing to help the whole time. What the heck was I doing?
Yeah, and in fact, that's why I started Idea Pros in the first place to try to give back. We'll talk about Idea Pros later,
Yeah.
but in some ways, it turns out to be a nightmare if you're trying to help too many people all at once. But
Yep. So I know you've started businesses in retail, technology, communication, capital firms. How did you start all these businesses in different lanes? Because what I see a lot of times from I would classify you personally as a serial entrepreneur. What I see a lot of times from folks like yourself is they started, business to consumer supplement company. Then they started a business to consumer, alcohol brand. Then they started a t-shirt. Like it's all B2C kind of products, but
yeah,
you started multiple companies in multiple different lanes. So just curious your approach there.
yeah, software, hardware,
Yeah.
finance, yeah, all over the place. You would think I am entrepreneurially schizophrenic, but the reality is building a business is, in a sense, cookie cutter. There's certain elements you have to do in certain order to give yourself a really good chance of making it. So once you have that formula, which we use in Idea Pros, by the way, of creation, build, launch, once you have that formula down, then you can go really into any sector. And what I tried to do in my businesses, I started 10 businesses before Idea Pros, and 8 of them were successful. So how do I get that kind of rate? Because what I looked for is not a sector. What I looked for is a whole, an opportunity. I'm looking for business sectors that are growing, that most often are growing rapidly, that have robust competition and a fervent audience of customers or clients. And there's something missing in the solution. There's a critical component of what is offered that doesn't address all the needs that these people have. And so if you can find what's missing and you can go into the market delivering that missing piece, then you have a much higher chance of being successful. Market's been proven. If you're going to get investors, you can point to these competitors and say, look, these 3 companies are all billion-dollar companies in 3 years offering an inferior solution. I'm no better than them, but I'm offering exactly what all these customers who are paying billions of dollars say they really want to have. And that makes it a much smoother. You're riding the wave, basically.
Yeah, I love that. I like what you mentioned about kind of having that proven market credibility. So when you're talking to investors, it's look at this one, this one, this one.
Yeah.
Where do you find that kind of missing piece, as you mentioned there?
1-star reviews.
I like that.
Whatever sector you're looking at, you want to go into, look at the dominant players in that sector and look at the bad things people are saying about them. And if there's a commonality, if there's a subset of what's being said that's poor, then you lead with that. The customer service sucks. Nobody ever gets back to me. I can never reach anybody. I don't even see a phone number on their websites. And all of a sudden, if that's the commonality, then you lead with the fact that you're customer focused, customer driven. The customer is always right. We'll answer 7 days a week, 24/7. All of a sudden, you're addressing a pain point. And a lot of pain points would be a lot more substantial than just customer service. There'll be things like, this widget has these 3 functions, but I really need this 4th thing and I can't find it anywhere. And you get 20% of the complaints being about that 4th thing that they can't find anywhere. You make that 4th thing. I did that in the cable industry with a company I started called Imagine Communications. When high definition television or content first started coming out, the cable industry was pretty much screwed because their infrastructure, that cable that goes into your house, could only carry 1 megabit. And back then, an HD signal required 1.5. So they were screwed. There was no way that they could play with the game. So we found the hole. What's the hole? All around the world, cable companies are going to go out of existence unless there's a solution to that HD. So we developed technologies that quadrupled their throughput in their pipes. So instead of 1 meg, they now had the capability using our equipment to deliver 4 megs, which meant 2 HD and 1 SD signal in every household. So saved the day for the cable industry, allegedly. $20 million worth of orders in the first year. And the company is still private, but does about $800 million a year in revenue and employees on every habitable continent, all from filling that hole.
Wow. Yeah, quite literally filling the hole being a cable company, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's super cool. And it was just like, hey, like they're not going to be able to keep up. This is happening. Boom, we're going to fill that hole. And then obviously watched what happened there.
Yeah, and I told them we would do that. We left, and my engineers, who were my co-founders, looked at me like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Say that. But within 6 months, they found a way to pull it off.
Wow, that's a super unique story. And I love that it's still doing so well. I know you mentioned they're private, obviously, but so was your first company, was it retail, or am I mistaken there?
The first company I was involved in when I was 22 was in the restaurant business.
Okay.
And then after that, it was in the music business, the concert promotion business. Then I became a lawyer, and then I went into technology and had several different companies after that.
Yeah. Do you think having the law experience helps significantly?
It it really has helped me, and probably not in the way that most people think. They think, oh,
Yeah.
you're a lawyer, you can take advantage of everybody. But I think what helped me about becoming a lawyer and practicing law for a while was that you had to learn to understand your opponent's point of view. And if you're in a relationship where you're in court or you're arguing about an agreement or something like that, if you don't understand where the other person's coming from, you're very unlikely to come up with a solution. And the fact that I kind of learned how to think empathetically, I think it really helped me create better businesses.
Yeah. I liked what you mentioned there about the other person's point of view. For any business to be successful, you have to have a sales component. You have to make revenue, right? And I think that can be a huge driver of success of being able to understand the customer's mind, their point of view, and align your product or service to that.
Yeah, yeah, and what their pain points are. What
Yeah.
we want to put when we're selling something, we want to sell. That's the worst thing you can do. You want to create an environment where that customer really wants to get something from you that you have that's going to really help them. The way to get to that point is to address the pain points. What do you stay up at night thinking about? What are the hardest things that you have in front of you to make your business a success? And what things have hurt the most in growing your business to where you've got, if you focus on all the things that they worry about and then have a solution that, I'm glad you worry about all those things. I don't think you're ever going to have to worry about them again. Let me tell you why.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite industry that you've dabbled in? I know you run Idea Pros now, which is the business incubator, right? But in leaning on the past experience, do you have one that was like, yes, I love this particular one?
Well, I love music, but
Yeah,
that
I can tell.
but I'm not making any money. Although I've heard now I've made $6,000 from my first million downloads. So, ooh.
Nice.
But I think. I don't really have a favorite business. I think the entrepreneurial world and helping entrepreneurs, in a way, it's my favorite business. In other ways, it's my least favorite business. The problem with helping so many entrepreneurs, and we've had over 100,000, not over, but around 100,000 applications to work with us, and we've started 400 companies that we own 25 to 30% of. The beauty of being able to work with somebody and create something is amazing. On the other hand, when there's delays and the engineering doesn't work like it's supposed to, and we go to try to copyright a name or trademark a logo and it's not available, there's a subset of entrepreneurs that I don't think really are entrepreneurs that get upset that, well, the engineering take an extra 3 weeks, you guys suck. So there's, with all the 5-star happiness, there's the 1-star, like, you guys are horrible component to it. And the successful entrepreneurs are only successful because they take ownership. Whatever happens, they take ownership for it. And even if they have 10 people in the room and 5 of them suggested to try something, the really successful entrepreneurs take ownership for the bad things that happen and spread the wealth on the good things that happen. And there's a big subset of people that think they're entrepreneurs that don't do that. They'd rather find blame. This didn't work out because of him, or this took too long, or this engineering team sucked. It's your job, And so when we have people like that in my business, it really is painful and it affects me because I am really empathetic to that entrepreneurial journey, but not everybody's cut out for it. And so the fire part of this it can be pretty dramatic.
Yeah, you're like, hey, that's the name of the game. That's what you ended up signing up for, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, just dramatic fires, things of that nature. You mentioned 8 out of 10 businesses were successful. Obviously, that's a great success rate there. But I'd love for you to talk about maybe some of the failures, setbacks, adversities on maybe some of those other two or other experiences you've had.
Yeah, I'll do a couple. I'll do one that still pisses me off to this day. The short story, but it pisses me off in a big way. Everybody listening has cut and paste something. Probably today they cut and
Yeah.
pasted something. Well, we created that technology, and I could not get any funding at all for this company. It was called Azure. And the technology that we developed, and back then smartphones weren't so smart. This was like 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. And we developed a technology that you could go to all your favorite websites and clip out all the most important things. Like if you went to the Fox Sports and you wanted all the highlights of all the games, clip that out. Go to New York Times, get your international news, go to the Wall Street Journal, top performing stocks, whatever it is, fashion, beauty, music, whatever it is, cut all those out and bring them all into a page that we create for you automatically, they would call it. We create this living page. And so you would go up on your page when you turn your computer up, and everything was coming at you live from all these different resources that were the best things that you were interested in. I thought it was brilliant. I couldn't get a penny. And then, all the cut and paste technology now that Microsoft uses, that's where it started. So that's a bad story. Now I'll tell you a bad story that went well. I started another company called Boxlot, and Boxlot went to compete against eBay when eBay first came out. eBay was up for maybe 9 months to a year. They were already moving pretty quickly, but I thought there was room, just like Uber and Lyft, that there was room for another player in that space. So we went in, we had better things at auction. We were presenting things in a better, beautiful looking way comparatively, and we couldn't catch them no matter what. They would sell 30-cent things, and I was selling a $2 million stamp, and we still couldn't catch up to them no matter what we did. We had about $8 million worth of investment at that point, and I was ready just to give up on the technology. And I think this is a good lesson for everybody. But I didn't, because a lot of times you're in the right place, but you're offering the wrong thing. So when you have a company out there and you're in a sector that you believe is really, really important and really growing, and you're not getting any traction, don't second guess that sector, second guess what you're offering within that sector first. And that's what I did. I looked at the sector we were in. I knew it was going to continue growing. And I thought, what's missing here from this picture? And what was missing was the underlying technology, because doing bidding and things like that online had not been done before. So there was not a robust technology like incremental bidding, or bid automatically up to this number, notify me immediately when somebody outbids me, set my maximum bids, bid or buy, reverse bidding. None of those things had been created. And so we stopped being an auction company and started becoming a technology company. And when we went down that path and we made all those things, we ended up getting an offer to be acquired for $125 million within a year after we went down that road, mind you, with hardly any revenue.
That's so cool. I love the right place, wrong thing. That's what you mentioned there, right? Yeah. How did you end up pivoting? I mean, did you have to just completely revamp the business model? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, and in fact, I just finished doing that with Idea Pros. But if you're not willing to pivot, that means probably that you're too stubborn or you're too full of yourself. The best entrepreneurs are the ones that are always second guessing themselves. And can I do this better? Am I doing the most I can? What did I forget? How could I do this differently? If you're questioning yourself all the time, you're going to end up being better. And so pivoting is a natural part of that process, because there's no way you can be building something that didn't exist before and do it right the first time. It's just not going to happen. And so, in fact, I did a show about a year ago on my own Facebook page. It was called, I think, "What Do Millionaires and Bad Ideas Have in Common?" And what it is a lot of ideas start out half-baked, not quite the right thing. But the people who are perseverant and just go through it and pivot and change it, shift as they need to, they're the ones that are likely to become the millionaires.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's part of the game. Things are going to change quickly, especially nowadays, and it's being able to recognize the need to pivot, and even going back to what you mentioned earlier, continue to look for that missing piece. You found that missing piece when you pivoted there.
Yeah.
So I never like to speak on behalf of somebody's company. So I would love from your side. I mean, I know I've referenced it earlier. Idea Pros creating world-class entrepreneurs, but would love to hear exactly what Idea Pros is, and would love to start diving into some maybe a bit more in the weeds business questions with you.
Sure, of course. Well, speaking of pivoting, we spent the last year at Idea Pros not taking in any new partners, new clients, because we had to reinvent ourselves. What Idea Pros started at was, you have an idea, you've never done this before, come work with us. We will take your idea, train you, and build everything out so that within a year or two, you're going to have a company that you can launch all over the country. You're going to have the experience by working with us to do a good job at it, and you're off to the races. That cost $100,000 to work with us, and 30% of the company that we would form together. And it seems like a lot of money, but these people were going to be spending $500,000 to $1 million to do everything that we did. They would not have to spend any money doing anything else. Great idea. Unfortunately, we had 100,000 people apply to say, I'm going to give you $100,000. It's $10 billion worth of opportunity in my own sales funnel, and it was like drinking out of that proverbial fire hose. Didn't go anywhere because it was just too much heavy lifting, too many applications, and the 400 that we took, a subset of them that were too big on the, I'm not really an entrepreneur, I'm a complainer side of things. So it turned out to be a mess. Although we managed to get through it, it was really, really hard. And so we spent that last year reimagining Idea Pros. And now Idea Pros is really for any entrepreneur at any point in their journey. And we can help either on a compartmentalized basis, like, am I in the right place? Do I have the right strategy? My naming and branding, is that on point? Is my go-to-market strategy correct? Am I building the right thing in the right way with the right manufacturers? Do I have the right app? And where can I get funding? I need funding now. Where can I get it? So we've compartmentalized all those things. So you can think of us as the beginning of an Amazon for entrepreneurs. That literally, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a challenge, you have a question, you have something that you need to figure out, you come to us and we'll figure it out with you.
And is the business model still the same, where it's the 100K buy-in for about 30%, or is that shifted as well?
Yeah, no, that's only available, and it's 25% now because some venture capital firms were beating on us for how much we owned, even though we did 100% of the work. So now it's 25%, but that's really left only for a few. Right now, when you come in to work with us, you'd start out with a $1,000 package that basically is a 70-page strategic document to talk about, where you are, how big that market is, how big it's growing, where the holes in the market are, which is my tradition, who the competitors are, what are the weak points, how do you get your audience, all the way through to go-to-market strategies. The employees are going to need to hire, a pitch deck for when you go out to raise capital, elevator pitch, everything for less than $1,000. Well, $1 less than $1,000. That's where we start. And everybody should have that. If you don't have that, then you're like that coach that goes in to coach a professional football game, and you don't know any of the rules. You don't know who the opponents are. You don't know the strengths of the people on your own damn team. You don't know what it's going to take to excite the people in the stadium. That's the way we go in entrepreneurship. So we start there. This is your Bible. This is your business model. This is your strategic document. So we start at that $1,000 point and work our way through all the different elements of what somebody might need.
Yeah, I like that too because it's just very simple, right? But I feel like to master the simplicity of business is going to create success in the long run because you have that strong foundation there.
Yeah.
With Idea Pros, did you think of this idea from finding a hole in the market with other VC firms, incubators, or where did that kind of about?
Um, on social media,
Yep.
everybody wants to be an entrepreneur now. And you got a 20-year-old guy with his rented Lamborghini
Yeah.
sitting out in front of somebody else's house, talking about send me $500 and you're going to be well on your path to becoming a gazillionaire. And so social media makes it look really easy. But when I started looking at the underlying data, 94% of entrepreneurs who are multimillionaires or billionaires, 94% of them came from really prestigious schools. Over 60% of them have advanced degrees from those schools. They have professors that can call down the street at Sand Hill Road and get VCs to pony up $10 million for a half-baked idea. And the rest, which is just 550,000 new entrepreneurs every month, the rest are outsiders. We don't know the game. We don't have the connections. We don't know how to raise capital. We don't know how to talk to investors. We don't know how to create the right go-to-market path going forward. And so it was the biggest gaping hole of anything. Literally 95% of the customers had nothing that they should get. It's like needing brain surgery. You go online and all you can find is, where can I buy the best brain surgery equipment? That's the equivalent of what we had as entrepreneurs. So there was nobody there to help us on this very, very hard, impossible journey. And so that's why I decided to start it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because I've done a lot of research on Crunchbase and things like that, and seeing these businesses like you quoted half baked. And I'm like, how did they get 20 million in funding for this not only crappy idea but hardly any execution behind it? And then I'll research the founder. I'll be like, oh yeah, they went to this school, probably got this connection, but
Yeah.
what about the other large percentage and large quantity that maybe just went to a state school and they don't have half of those connections or any of them, and you're kind of
Yeah.
filling that hole there. So
Yeah. That's exactly why I started it.
And yeah, those guys on social media, buy my course, you'll become rich overnight. Like, oh my gosh, that's like one of my biggest pet peeves, pisses me off so much. I'm glad you
You'll
mentioned
become rich like me.
Yes.
Like, because I became rich by selling my course.
Yeah, with my rented, baseline Lambo over here.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's say someone has an idea, like what's kind of that step to be like, okay, like let's actually get this moving from a business perspective.
The first thing is, does my idea suck?
Mhm.
And that's why, in fact, anybody can go and get one of our $9.99 packages. I mean, I would encourage anybody to do that, because spending $1,000, you might be saving $100,000. And when you go in there and do that research, hey, this is my idea. This is what I want to do. Is my timing right? Is what I want to build correct? Doing that initial research to really see what's going on. And if you're too cheap to do that, go online, for God's sakes, and start putting all those things in and look at the competitive landscape, look at the growth opportunity in the marketplace, see if what you want to do really fits in there, or whether it's something that 78 other firms are out there doing a good job and you have nothing differentiated. So do the research. That's the thing that we don't do. Literally everybody that came to us, and this is the age of the internet, for God's sakes. In fact, it's almost the end of the age of the internet. I'm not sure what's coming next, but it's going to be ugly. It's so easy to get information, and nobody does. I mean, I'll interview people all the time. So, who are your competitors? Oh, I don't have any competitors. Oh, okay. You don't have any competitors. Well, if you don't have any competitors, you probably don't have any demand. And if you don't have any demand, there's no audience. There's no audience. That means there's no customers. And so you're solving a problem that doesn't exist. But that's how let me interrupt myself for an important message. That's the number one reason of new business failures in America is the founder created something that there's no demand for. It's not lack of capital. You build something that nobody wants. Now, how
Yeah.
insane is that? And yet that first step, your $1,000 step of finding out my game plan, my playbook for my football game I'm about to start, we don't do that. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, I like that concept of just going out and researching. And like you said, if you're too cheap to pay $9.99, Google right there, right? And
Yeah.
and you mentioned, opportunity to save money in the long run. Like not only that, but save time as well by not going down a
Oh yeah.
5-year path of a business that isn't going to do anything.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I know you work with a lot of co-founders, obviously from all different walks of life, industry, et cetera. What are some, maybe key differentiation style traits that you see out of these people who are just crushing it, doing really well in this space?
The people that are most willing to accept the pain.
Hmm.
Those are the ones. And when I started, I didn't even consider that factor because the quote unquote typical entrepreneur is not the young kid that you see that has become a billionaire at 20. The typical founder is 30 to 55 years old, usually in corporate America. They're really climbing up the ladder. They're doing well. In fact, we've had a couple of people making 750 grand a year in corporate America, senior executive, and hating their lives. And I thought when I first started, hey, we'll make this really easy transition. We'll do all the work. We'll report every couple of weeks how things are going, and it'll be awesome. But we were creating marshmallows instead of entrepreneurs because to be a really good entrepreneur, you have to suffer. You really have to suffer. I mean, there's things that go wrong all the time. Things don't work out. You never have money. People don't want to give you money. People don't want to buy what you have. And so you're fighting this negative landscape every single day. And the people that can do that and wake up the next morning and say, hey, where is it? Let me go for it. Those are the ones that are going to make it because all you need is one more success than your last failure and you'll get there. But a lot of people drop off way too early. So perseverance, ownership, like this is on me, as I said earlier, if anything bad happens, it's on me. Leadership, the ability to let go and bring in very talented people around you that can help guide your ship forward in a better way than you can do by yourself. And the ability to kind of pivot and not be so self-assured that you think you've developed something that's perfect because my mom said it was. Those are the key elements, really.
Yeah, that's super cool that you just mentioned the perseverance component. I think that's probably one of my favorite traits of successful people is just the ability to get punched in the face over and over and over again and just be able to get back up. And especially in the game of business, you were joking before we started recording and I was like, if you had any setbacks and you were like, nope, none at all. And then you just started cracking up. That's just the name of the game.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So I liked what you mentioned about the mid 30s to 50-ish because that was actually something I just learned like 2 seconds ago from you because I always thought that like the classic entrepreneur was like 19, 20, 21 years old, right? But I'm like, oh, well, that does make sense. Maybe it's more experience. So let me ask you this though. Like, let's say you're 40 years old, you're corporate executive, you're making, like you said, 750K. Like I got this idea. Maybe you've gone through that first strategic plan that you referenced. Like, okay, this is actually going to work. Do you
Yeah.
have to then like scale completely back to be like, all right, well now I need to get rid of like my $800,000 house. Now I need to sell my Porsche. Now and like, where's kind of that? Because I feel like there's some people listening. It's like, well, I don't want to go back to eating ramen noodles like I was doing at 21 years old. Like I like taking my wife and kids out to a nice dinner and vacation every now and then. Like, what's your thought process there?
Well, first of all, if you can tell me where I can get an $800,000 house, I'm in. Uh,
Yeah.
Secondly, it's funny. We presented in many different events, and we would have ramen there that we would give away ramen for free at our booth because that's the first step of entrepreneurship is making ramen money and enough
Yep.
money to get you some really shitty food. And unfortunately, I believe you can't go all in halfway in.
Yep.
You know, you can't be half pregnant. That at some point you're going to have to jump the ship. Now, that doesn't mean you can't just kind of feel those waters out, start getting a little bit of momentum, then start thinking, you know what, this might work. You're not going to ever build that business in a part-time environment. At some point, you're going to have to say, I'm going to take the plunge. I have 2 years worth of savings here. I know I'm probably going to use every penny of it, but I think I can do this, and start doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just having that plan in place, not necessarily like a plan B, but at that phase in your life, at least having something so you're not living on the street or something if it fails. Like, do you always recommend like having some sort of emergency fund savings maybe at that phase or
No, but I'm a shitty person
to
for
ask?
that. But I'd rather live on the street.
Yep.
In fact, I don't have a retirement fund at all. Everything that I do, I put into my businesses, my growth. It's constantly working. Um, I'm 74 already, and I'm not thinking about my retirement. Maybe after I'm in my 90s or something. But if you just keep working and plugging along, and this is the worst financial advice you're probably ever going to hear, but you're hearing it here from me, and it's heartfelt. Why save money for what you're going to be 40 years from now? What you're doing today is going to dictate that 40-year from now person. So why not take advantage of what you have available to you? All the financial gurus will say, hey, save $50 a week from the time you're 18 for the rest of your life, and you'll have $7 million when you retire. That's probably true. But the mindset, I think, for young folks is go for it, risk it. I mean, you don't have that many obligations, and you know what? There's a couple of good places to sleep on the street. San Diego is great weather. You lose everything, come here, be homeless with me. But no, bet on yourself. Bet on today, you of today, and then your future will be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said. Bet on yourself, especially while you're young and you have the ability to do so there. What, I guess last question for you before I want you to plug some of your socials and your music actually. Where is, kind of what's your thought process for those that are listening? They're like, okay, like I got this idea and it's kind of working, but I'm just afraid to take that risk. I know speaking to guys like you, serial entrepreneurs, risk comes very easy. I don't want to say easy as in like it actually was easy to do that, but it's like you're kind of used to taking the risk, right?
Yeah.
What is your kind of advice there just to be like, all right, just go jump and do it? Because
Yeah, I wouldn't jump and do it until you wake up repeatedly at 3 in the morning and start kicking yourself in the ass because you're not doing it. And you walk through the day and you're thinking, this is, if somebody else comes up with this, is gonna fucking kill me. And you can have day after day of being completely distracted by what your dream is. At that point, you can turn your dream into a reality. You know, if you're everybody has an idea. So if you're casually thinking, "Oh my God, this is going to be $1 billion thing," it's not, and you should just go back to your day job. But if you're thinking, this can make a big difference in a lot of people's lives or in this business sector, and you're not thinking about the money, you're thinking about the problem and the great solution that doesn't exist yet. If you're focused there and you're myopically focused on that day after day, there's going to be a time when you need to take that plunge. And when you do, make sure that you start out with your little floaty by going and buying the research and doing the investigations and figuring out if what you want to do is really worth doing. And if the timing is right, there was a Harvard review that studied something like 50 startups that got hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital funding from the best venture capital firms in the world. And they all had top caliber executives in them coming from the best schools or really great other opportunities that they were in. And some of them failed miserably and some of them succeeded incredibly. And this research was to find the commonality. What is it that made some of them fail and some of them succeed, because a lot of these other pieces were the same. And what it was, timing. It was all about timing. Are you riding the right wave at the right time with the right surfboard? And if you are, then you're gonna come in and have a great ride. If you're not, then you're going to be either paddling against the currents, or you're going to be out in a flat ocean, or all the waves are going to be ahead of you that you missed them all. So it's all about timing. So that's why research is so critically important. Nobody wants to do that. But again, think about to pick your favorite sports team, and then imagine if the coach didn't even know the rules of the game, much less the competitors. How silly and awful would that person be? That's what we want to be when we have a supposedly great idea.
Yeah, that's a super cool concept. I appreciate you sharing that study, especially about the timing component there. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of that. But where's the best place where people can connect with you via, social, website, things like that? Because you got a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, so website's ideapros.com. If anybody wants help with anything for any reason, anything to do with entrepreneurship, you can just write to me, fred@ideapros.com, and I'll answer your email whether I can help you or not. I'll certainly try to lead you in the right direction. On social media, if you go to my Instagram page, official Fred Cary, Cary, that would be cool. And if you're musically inclined and like a independent singer-songwriter, you can go on any music, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, YouTube, all of them, and look for Fred, F.R.E.D. And the first album's called It's a Beautiful Day. We've had 1 million downloads already in 6 weeks, and maybe you guys can make it 2 million. Yeah. So you can see me there. But, hey, this is a great journey. There are going to be all sorts of detours and deviations and a couple of critical car accidents along the way, but just keep going and you're going to get to your destination.
Yep, absolutely. And then when people are researching their business, they can throw on Beautiful Day album, lock in with some research, right?
Exactly. And in fact, not a lot of them, but several of my songs are about fighting through everything. I mean, a lot of them are songs for entrepreneurs, if you look at it that way, because it's about, beating the odds and just sticking with it and understanding that from pain comes beauty.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again for being on the podcast. I got a lot of value out of it. And of course, I know my listeners did as well.
Good. Awesome. It's great to be here. And I can't believe you're 28. Envious.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Well, that's it, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to tune into this week's episode of Next Level Minds. Be sure to connect with Fred. His information will be below in the show notes. If you got an idea, hop over to Idea Pros. Let them see what they can do for you. Otherwise, share this episode with a family member, friend, or colleague. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week ahead.